Hello everyone, welcome back to the Relationship Scandals channel. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. The growth is important to keep up with the hours we put into writing and narrating these original exclusive contents we share daily. I will drop a link to the part 1 of this story in the description below. Without further ado, let's get into the story. Well, throw your tomatoes at me and shout shame, I deserve it. I wrote out my diary and confessed to the world what I did, anonymously. I cheated on my husband at my bachelorette party. I confessed to everyone first except to my husband, but when I did confess to him, I lost my marriage. I cried, pled, even lied to cover my shame, nothing worked. Losing the marriage was not the problem, it's the way I lost my marriage that completely shred me to pieces. This gentleman I thought was caring and loving, deceived me. I believe he's the Lucifer, dawn of the morning himself, because the way he plotted his revenge so carefully and covert, I never saw it coming before it was too late. This is too big a price to pay for cheating. I mean, I messed up, but my husband chose to not accept my apology and took the heartless route to get his pound of flesh. Two wrongs are not supposed to make a right. Hopefully my broken heart heals quicker. Here's the quick background rundown. My bridesmaids and friends hosted a bachelorette party for me at an Airbnb rented space. We had so much fun and played several party games. The atmosphere was intensified when the male dancers my friends invited showed up. Drunk and horny, long story short, myself and a couple bridesmaid hooked up with some of the dancers. I thought I can get a free pass to be naughty one last time before I get married. We pushed it too far when we cheated on our partners. This was supposed to be a harmless sin because of the unspoken secrecy understanding we had. After all, it wouldn't hurt our husbands and boyfriends if they don't know. We convinced ourselves it was the alcohol that made us give our kitty away easily that night, and we wanted some pipe. Then we thought maybe it was normal and a rite of passage for me to do this before marriage, since most men do it anyway. We couldn't arrive at a reason, but we knew this can never get out and we would deny if it ever leaked. Everything went to plan with secrecy until I started to get blackmail texts from a strange number. Now you are all caught up. Here's how my life has been after the blackmailing encounter. The blackmail text started coming in more often. The text would read trolling torments like, "I know what you did, and I have the tapes, are you ready to be adult star?" Just tormenting me like, come on, just spit it out already, what do you want? I chose to ignore the texts until I started to get audio recordings. I immediately knew this was a setup and it was the male dancer that orchestrated this blackmail. It was a trap and I walked right into it. It was supposed to be a meaningless fling because I don't even know this guy's name. He baited me in the audio recordings, saying my name repeatedly. He would say things like, "How does it feel to get piped down one last time before your wedding?" and I would repeatedly tell him, "It feels good, don't stop." At one point, this idiot said my first and last name in the clips he was sending in. It never occurred to me how he got my name, but I assumed he saw the invitation. The sex was so good, and I just wanted him to shut up and fill up my kitty. As if to make sure he confirmed my identity, he would tell me to confess to him my husband can't drill me, like he was satisfying me. I fell for it because I thought that was his sex talk and some sort of fetish for him to exact dominance. I played along and would say, "No baby, insert my ex-husband's name, can't drill this kitty like you, give it to me harder." I remember being drunk that night, but I couldn't even deny this was my voice on the tapes. I continued to ignore these texts until he started to release 8 seconds video clips to me. Apparently, he had planted the video device and blurred his face out. My heart was broken. He got me and he got me good. At this point I finally gave in and responded, "What do you want?" He responded by giving me a hotel address, told me to bring $5,000 and come without wearing my panties. I felt disgusted. My whole body reacted by going numb. There's no way I would let this worthless scum enter my body again. There was no guarantee he won't come back for more money, even though he also promised to destroy all the evidence he had on me. I committed a moral sin by cheating, but what he was doing was criminal. I was at a crossroad of making a crucial decision: either give in to this blackmailer or confess to my husband I cheated and face the consequences. The first thing I knew I had to do was ask my friend who invited this dancers and trace where she got them from. What this man is doing is unprofessional and just rude. I wanted to confirm if my friend wasn't in on this scam and wanted to find out which strip club she got them from, so I can talk to the manager if I was ready to blow this up. To my surprise, my friend told me it was from a local gig website and no physical presence. What a BS. I started to suspect her too as an accomplice, but I knew the truth would come out if I blew this case open. Obviously, I would have to involve my husband, so I started scheming what version of the story I would agree to tell. Physical presence or not, I made up my mind to tell my husband and tell him I was forcefully penetrated instead. A few sobs and tears would be able to help me sell my story, because I really wanted this stripper jailed for violating me like this. Also, I knew the tape should be able to show my intoxicated state, because he ignored the fact that some of my speech was slurred in the video. So clearly, I wasn't in a state of mind to make a good decision. I read about some forceful penetration cases and knew I could use this in my defense. So, I told my husband that fateful evening. True enough, I added some theatrics and embellished my story to him a bit. I told him my friends hired male dancers for my bachelorette party. I got inebriated and told one of the dancers to help me to my room, so I can shut down for the night. I told him I even think I might have been drugged because I blacked out when I got into my room. I continued by telling him that I didn't know that the same dancer had sexually taken advantage of me that night until recently, when he started to blackmail me. I cried profusely and told my husband about the blackmailer's request to meet up with him. Told him about the $5,000 request and the dressing. I said what I want to do was report him to the police to pick him up and throw him in jail where he belonged. Throughout my whole story to him, I managed to look at my husband's facial expression and read his body language to know how to sell this version of my story to him. True enough, I never cheated on my husband the whole 6 months plus we were married. I know it's easy to label me and call me names, but the last cheating affair I had was that bachelorette night. As I explained away, my ex-husband had this strange poker face look and simply told me everything was going to be alright. He helped me up and wiped my tears, telling me he would support me in whatever decision I make. I thought he had bought my story and believed me. I was now in the clear to take off and start planning my takedown of the bad ring of male strippers taking advantage of vulnerable women who just wanted to have fun. If he could do this to me, I'm sure there would be other victims as well. If I could take this blackmailing criminal off the streets, the city police would hail me a hero and my moral sins would be forgiven. So, the date is set. I was supposed to meet the blackmailer and we had a plan to get the police involved. My husband had given me advice on how we should do it. He would go to the hotel and scout the area, rent a room next to the one the blackmailer told me to meet him at. I told him I don't like the idea and I just wanted the police to pick him up there. He said, well, do I have a description of what he looked like so we could share with the police? I said no. He also advised that if the blackmailer sees any cop performing a sting operation, he would vanish not to be seen again, and meanwhile, my sex tape would leak online, which would be worse. Instead, he said we should stick to the original plan, which would involve him staking out the area. I would comply and wear a nice blue dress with no panties as the blackmailer requested. Once I go to the hotel room, he instructed he would be the one dialing the police to report an accident that would require police intervention. The police would arrive, make our accusation, and they would nab him. He promised once I knock on the door, he would show up and hold the suspect at gunpoint till the police come. This is starting to look very easy, in fact too easy. I didn't see the signs of what my husband was doing. I went along with it, and when I showed up to the hotel, My husband told me he had left from work and was already at the location. He told me he loved me and would be looking around to spot me when I show up. He instructed me to not make phone calls, as that would spook the blackmailer, but just trust him. He said he was already in the next room and would show up as we planned. Well, I showed up, knocked on the door, and I heard a muffled voice say, "Come in." I was panicking at this point because my husband hadn't jumped out like he said he would, and I didn't want to get on the phone to call him because of his instructions when I was in the parking lot. I also didn't want to spook the suspect, so I didn't call the police and assumed that my ex probably already called them. The voice in the hotel room yelled out, "Come in," once more, and I was expecting the male dancer who had been blackmailing me, whose face I barely remember at this point, to jump out. Instead, the door gently opened, and who do I see? My freaking husband. Well, ex-husband. At first, I thought he changed plans, improvised, and had possibly killed the male stripper. I asked what happened and where was the stripper. He responded that I should have a seat. I seated. He locked the door behind me and held an envelope in his hand with a cleverly tied ribbon color matching my blue dress. He said he needed to explain something to me about the so-called operation we wanted to do. He said first, he is aware that I cheated on him on the Bachelorette night and wasn't forcefully penetrated as I lied. I gasped. What the heck is going on? I wanted to switch back to my teary-eye mode again, and he told me to stop and just stop it. He told me he had known about the scandal before I even confessed. What he was doing in the meantime was to give himself enough time to file for divorce papers, which was packaged in the envelope he had on the bed. I told him this was a mean thing to do and asked him what he knows, because at this point, I was confused myself. Apparently, from what he said, he had opened my text during one of the times the blackmailing text came into my phone. He texted the blackmailer and gave him his number, told him he was the husband and wasn't mad, but he needed to hear the details of what happened. He even told me he rewarded this stupid male stripper by giving him money out of my $5,000. The same $5,000 he foolishly told me to withdraw and give to him. I thought it was strange he took the money from me, since the plan was to get the cops. He had somehow convinced me that he would add to the money and use it to retain a lawyer that would help us nail the blackmailer in court. He was so petty and said he made sure he used part of the money to pay the stripper to get more information, file divorce, and even tipped himself. Anyway, my evil ex brought out his computer and started playing my sex tapes. Oh my God. I couldn't take it anymore and I cried real tears this time. This was not the man I loved so much I agreed to marry. We were still supposed to be in the honeymoon phase, but this was hell on heart. My ex told me not to worry, that the adult tape video hasn't been released online, but he would release it if I don't meet his divorce demands and sign annulment papers. Annulment was far-fetched. I wouldn't even get settlements, alimony, or anything. Did I escape one blackmail to enter a worse blackmail? This man told me after he got the necessary information from the dancer, he had been the one texting me the blackmail's texts. After that, he was also the one that set up the whole meet-up thing at the hotel thing after he got the papers. He perfectly erased evidence that he has been into my phone and became a poison pill. Played me like a fool when I was crying the forceful penetration story to him. He saw the tape and determined it wasn't not forceful. How cruel. On top of that, this heartless sob took my money. As I stood there crying, he said he would be in touch. My heart literally took a real beating. When I got home that day, his stuffs were no longer in the house. His phone was disconnected and I'm still waiting for him to get back. I don't know what other plan this man has hatched, and it scares me. He seems to be on a revenge tour, and I fear this might just be the beginning. Well, if you all want to wait with me, I guess we find out together. For now, I'm just over it. I lost weight already from loss of appetite, sweaty dreadful night sleeps and bad case of anxiety. I don't know when this monster would come back to take another pound of flesh. Relationship scandal viewers, thanks for listening to the story. Please leave a like and comment on the video. As usual, when we get an update, we will post. Thanks all.